Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. So this week I have another admissions related video for you, but I have a special guest with me.
Hi!
So this is Nelli. Nelli is our Access and Schools Liaison Officer here at Univ, who's going to be going through some of the frequently asked questions that a lot of you leave in the comment section of my videos. And yeah, we're going to go through them together. So would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Nelli. I've worked at Univ for 3 years, over 3 years now, as the Schools Liaison and Access Officer. It means my job is to go into schools and give advice about applying to Oxford and have students come to visit me. And I also work with younger students, trying to raise aspirations, trying to get, students from more non-traditional backgrounds to see that Oxford could be a place that they want to study. Before that, though, I studied English, Literature and Language at Oxford myself. I was at another college and loved it so much that I wanted to keep going and persuade other people to come and study here.
What we're going to be doing is we're going to split the questions that we have into 3 different sections. So we're going to be going through some of the admissions questions that you have, some of the interview related questions, and then some other questions that cover things from open days and any other matters. So the first question that we have is, what kind of GCSE grades do I need?
Yeah, this is a question I get a lot from students, or are my GCSE grades good enough? And the easy answer is there is no quota for GCSEs, and they're just one bit of information that we have, and we definitely use them alongside all the other bits of the application. So for many of the subjects, there's an admissions test. There is teachers' predicted grades and a teacher's reference. There might be some written work if you're applying for an essay-based subject. So there's just one bit of information, and it's all used as alongside each other to put up a picture of the student as a whole, and the interviews, the kind of the final stage. So there is no quota for GCSEs. They're just looked at alongside all of this information. And in many ways, because the GCSEs are also contextualised, they're put in the context of the school that you achieve them in. And so a student who has got incredibly good GCSEs in the context of their school, and if it's a low-performing school, even if they're not the best GCSEs of the people that apply to Oxford, they're still going to look pretty impressive to us. So we put them in the context of the school that they got them from, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we're just taking into account that we know that some schools have fewer resources, they have much larger classes, they're not able to support students in the way that some better resourced schools are.
I think that's why it's really important to not get caught up on like a number as well, especially when you hear that someone's got 14 A stars at GCSE. Well, they may be from a school people get 19 A stars and they're just not as good. So it's very important to just remember that you're trying to do well in the context that you're in.
Yeah, so GCSEs are contextualised, and alongside all the other aspects, it could be that maybe you've got slightly weaker GCSEs, but you do incredibly well in the aptitude test, and that balances it out, or your performance in the interview just shows us that you're passionate about your subject and you're going to really succeed in the way that we teach at Oxford, and that may balance out other aspects, if that makes sense. Definitely not get fixated on individual number of A's or stars, for example.
Definitely. I think that's very easy to get stuck on. So the next question we have is, what's changed now that A-level grades have been reformed?
Yeah, there's been a lot of changes to, I guess, the way that curriculum is working at GCSE and A-level in the UK, and it's a bit different across England, Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales. But I guess one of the main changes that schools have been worried about, and we know that they're very, very worried about it, is the fact that the AS exams that students used to take in kind of the summer of their their lower 6th or year 12 now don't count towards their final grades in A-level. We know that schools are quite worried about that, and they've reacted in many, many different ways to it. And in many ways that hasn't changed what Oxford do, but because we have a large number of ways in which we assess students. We have GCSE grades or equivalent qualifications that students have taken. We have the score in the aptitude or admissions test that happens for the majority of our subjects. We have the teacher's reference, predicted grades, any written work if it's an essay-based subject, and the performance in the interview. All of these things alongside each other are looked at. So the marks in an AS exam were never the kind of the bit of information that we relied on as a university when assessing students, and so we've just continued using all the different bits of information.
I think it'd be rather similar to how, so for example, I did the IB, so I didn't actually have any AS grades to show, so probably the same way that you would look at an application like that.
Yeah, so we've already had to assess people with lots of different qualifications, and even people coming without any qualifications at 16, so no GCSE
Oh,
equivalent
okay.
if they've come from countries that don't
Yeah,
offer.
that's true.
So there's a huge number of things
Yeah.
that we've had to, huge differences in people applying.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why we have the admissions test as a kind of standard bit of information, where
streamlined.
every person who is applying for that course has taken the same test. So we're able to add that little bit of information.
Yeah,
in.
that's true.
In terms of students worrying, should I be taking AS levels or should I not? Many students will be kind of bound by what their school are doing. So some schools have taken the stance that they're not going to do any AS standalone qualifications. Others have taken the stance that they're going to try and teach them at the same time and have some AS and then some taking ASs in 3 or 4 subjects and then dropping one and only doing A level in 3. And it's best to talk to the school about what the best option is for you. And in many ways, students won't have as much choice because it will be school policy that decides. And because of that, we are very understanding when a student has ASs or doesn't have ASs. We don't use the AS as a way of kind of systematically ranking students because we can't, because not everyone takes them. So we use all the other aspects of the application. If a student does have AS grades and they're on the UCAS one, we will look at them, and especially if they show if they're really impressive, they can kind of show off that a student has maybe will really thrive on the courses that we offer, and maybe are worthy of a place. Again, that's still just one bit of information amongst lots.
Another question sort of a similar wavelength is, will taking the IB reduce my chances of getting a place?
Taking the IB?
Yeah.
So as I said before, there's lots of different qualifications that students will be taking at kind of their sixth form stage, and we're used to comparing students that are taking A-levels with students that are taking the IB, with students that are taking qualifications that are offered by the countries that they come from, because quite a lot of students apply from overseas. And so whatever qualifications you're taking, we kind of look at what the equivalent marks would be and make an offer based on that. There still will be requirements if you apply taking the IB. For example, for kind of medicine, if you're applying, you need to have taken chemistry as one of your kind of higher level subjects alongside another science or maths. But that's an exact kind of replication of the A-level requirements. We have to take chemistry at A-level plus another science or maths. So you just have to look carefully at what the requirements, how they translate to the IB requirements.
I think even on like the Oxford website, they have a sort of list of loads of different international qualifications.
Absolutely,
and so as long as you meet that for your subject, like, it really shouldn't matter.
Next
question is, how important are the admissions tests?
The admissions tests are an important way that we assess students. We wouldn't do them if they weren't an important way, and as I mentioned earlier, they are, I guess, the only single piece of information that we have about every single student applying to a course. So we'll have people applying with loads of different qualifications, and so giving them a single test is a way of, I guess, being able to measure them directly against each other, if that makes sense. The admissions tests are only one part of the application, and the score in the admissions test, I guess, will be alongside the GCSEs, the predictions for A-levels, and the performance in the interview are kind of part of the process by which we decide whether to give someone a place. But they're not the be-all and end-all, if that makes sense. It's also worth noting that the aptitude test, the admissions tests, for the subjects that they're required for, are there's no kind of pass or fail mark. It's not like a set number that you have to get, and if you don't get that, you don't get an interview. Whether you get an interview will depend on how many other people, what the other people have scored who are taking the test in that year. So there's no set pass or fail mark. It's more of a way of comparing people. It's important because, as you can imagine, students apply to Oxford with very, very similar grades. They all look, from their A-level and other qualification results, they all look quite similar on paper. So the admissions test is a way of us kind of differentiating between people that all are predicted to get the requirements for the course, and another important bit of nuance, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. I think also, like, rather than seeing it as a hindrance, you can also actually help people. Because so, for example, if you're applying for law, but you've got no humanities in your A-levels and you've just got sciences, if they could sort of test your raw aptitude for studying law in the LLM.
So the word aptitude is really important. So they are definitely aptitude tests rather than testing your knowledge. They're never there to catch you out on what you don't know. but they're there to, I guess, test how you think. They're geared up very much like an interview. They're there to test how you think and see, do you think in quite a flexible way? Can you think critically about information, perhaps information you've never seen before? And for potentially some of the science subjects as well, you've got some pretty tricky equations or maths and physics to be working out. It's all related to the A-level syllabus, what we expect you to know by that point, but it shows how you might think in a slightly unfamiliar situation. So they're meant to be tricky, but they also give you another opportunity to show that you can think in a way that a university student needs to think when doing the subject that you want to apply for. So they're subject specific, but they're skills and aptitude based rather than particular knowledge or content based. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just going to move the mic over here. This is the kitchen. So the next question we have is, how important are personal statements, and will I be questioned on every single word?
Yes. I don't know if personal statements are maybe the bit that people worry about the most. You spend hours and hours agonising over getting it absolutely perfect, and whenever I talk to students, the stress that there is no perfect personal statement. That absolutely isn't a blueprint for how you should write it. But taking a lot of, I guess, care and attention to make sure you've included as much information and explanation about your love and your interest for your subject as possible will put you in the best position to kind of show universities that you really want to study the course that you're applying for. The personal statements are, because you're applying to 5 universities, for 4 of those, because with Oxford you've got the interview and you've got the aptitude test and other things, for those 4 other universities, it may well be the only chance you get to tell the university that you really love the course. So it may play a slightly more important role in application process for other universities, but it is used in Oxford. It is used as sometimes before we invite you to interview, but then also it might be discussed in the interview itself. So they may pick up on a few books that you read or a few interests that you noted that you're particularly passionate about, and discuss that in the interview. I think some people talk about their personal statement in their interview, but then for other people it might not come up at all. So it's really worth putting everything that's in there, making sure it's true, making sure you have read the books that you said you've read and all other things, and reread it before interview as well, because you would have finished writing it, I don't know, sometime in October, and you actually may not read it again until you come to interview in December if you're invited to interview. And rereading it while you're interview, I think, is a good way of refreshing your memory. And so it may be picked up on, they may pick up on a few points and get you to elaborate on it. It may not be mentioned at all. It really depends.
It wasn't mentioned at my first college, but it was mentioned at my second college.
I had one I was mentioned in one of my interviews and not in the other. So it really depends. All the interviews are different in different colleges. I would say that the personal statement itself, the process of writing it, is almost more important than the finished product. So as you go about writing a personal statement, you're not just going to be writing a list of things that you've done, or a list of reasons why you love your subject, just saying I love maths, I don't know, just telling the university about your passion for your subject. You really want to be demonstrating it, so you want to say, well, I'm really interested in this subject, so I went away and, having been interested in this bit of my A-level course, I went beyond it and read this and this and this, and that spurred me to, I don't know, apply for a study day at university, and then that made me question this, so I've been listening to this series of podcasts on this radio programme.
It's definitely a show don't tell kind of thing.
Absolutely. So demonstrating your interest, and even going into some kind of academic discussion about the things that you've been thinking about in the personal statement, to show that you've actually engaged with what you're reading. So actually talking about fewer things, but going into more detail.
So what extracurricular activities do I need to get in?
Okay, this question comes up a lot, and many people are surprised when I tell them the answer, in that Oxford and Cambridge University as well don't look at extracurricular activities if they're not related to your subject at all. The application process is entirely academic. It's about what type of student you're going to be when you arrive, how passionate you are about your subject. And so extracurricular activities that aren't related to your subject, I don't know, like doing the Gold Duke of Edinburgh, or having, I don't know, played violin since the age of 4, and I don't know, speak 3 languages, all of these things, amazing. But if they're not related to the subject that you do, they're not actually going to be helpful for you in admissions. I don't want to say that those things aren't useful, because obviously they're part of who the student is and what they enjoy doing, and you can definitely come to Oxford and enjoy doing all your extracurricular activities alongside your studying.
Yeah, definitely.
Coming to Oxford doesn't mean that you just lock yourself in a library and study all day. There's definitely space for doing extracurricular, but it's just not part of the application process in the way that we admit students. So on a personal statement, for example, do write about your extracurricular activities and especially demonstrate what they show about you. I don't know, if you've got a part-time Saturday job, does that show that you have a timekeeping ability, or you can work in a team? Because Oxford and Cambridge are quite unique in not looking at extracurricular activities. Other universities may well look at your extracurricular activities. So don't take them off the personal statement completely, but they're not going to form part of whether you made an offer by Oxford. It's just academic.
I think
application.
That's where the distinction between extracurricular and supercurricular lies.
Absolutely.
If it's related to your subject, then it could very well help you and probably brought up in an interview situation. But
so this word supercurricular is kind of related to extracurricular. It means doing activities beyond your school curriculum, off your own back, independently, but they're to do with the subject that you want to study, or maybe one of the subjects that you do at A-level, and we really encourage students to do this as much as possible. I touched on that a bit talking about personal statements. The process of engaging in books, magazines, documentaries, radio programmes, TED Talks, and there's some really amazing ways you can explore your subject outside of school. They're really valuable. They're going to help you to maybe choose your subject in the first place if you don't know what subject to study, or you're maybe choosing between a couple of options that you really love. They're going to help you choose your subject. They'll help confirm your choice. They'll help you become a bit more excited about studying it, because they can give you an insight into what studying it at university is going to be like. It's a lot more independent. But then they also help you, the supercurricular activities help you build up material for your personal statement, so you can demonstrate your interest rather than just tell the universities about it. You can show it, and they're really valuable for building important skills for the aptitude tests and the interview, because the more you're engaging with things for yourself, I don't know, for example, you're interested in, say, politics, and you want to read about, you're told that you need to know about current affairs, rather than reading loads and loads of news and just filling your head with all of the facts of everywhere in the world. It's probably more useful for you to read and criticise what you're reading as well. So maybe read the same bit of news in 2 or 3 different newspapers and think, well, how is this news item being reported by this newspaper? Or is this journalist maybe concealing some information or putting an emphasis on one particular aspect of the event? Does that show some kind of bias, kind of criticising it, reading between the lines? That process of thinking critically is going to build some really important skills for the aptitude tests or the interview later on.
That's true.
Does that make sense? That kind of
definitely.
The process of doing those supercurricular activities, as well as showing your interest, actually help you become a better student, as someone who's able to engage with their subject.
And I think that sort of critical thinking is definitely what they're trying to pick up on in an interview.
Absolutely, the way that you think and the way that you process information.
And also, if anyone is sort of lacking resources, you can head on to the Staircase 12 website. Do you want to explain what Staircase 12 is?
Yes, Staircase 12, it's where my office used to be in college. I've since moved offices, but we're still called Staircase 12. So it's like a virtual version, I guess, of the advice that we give out as a college. And on there's not actually much original information, is there? It's more like signposting to really great resources across the internet. We know that there is a lot of information out there. We found that some students knew that they had to do supercurricular exploration, but had no idea where to start. Other people had no idea they had to do it. And so it's a way of, I guess, giving out resources to students regardless of where they live in the world. They can access it. We signpost to different resources across the internet. I don't know, for example, we've got a link to the underground mathematics website that Cambridge University have created, which is really valuable for students applying for sciences or maths to help do maths themselves outside of the school curriculum. Or we might signpost to some really useful radio programmes. For example, there's some fantastic ones on Radio 4 that can help you just listen to stuff rather than... It's not all about reading and learning really dense, boring
Yeah.
textbooks. It's about engaging with your subject in lots of different ways.
Yeah.
We've just linked to a lot of those and we've split them by subject. And then there's another section of the website that has students from Univ or tutors from Univ talking about books that they think are fantastic ways to explore their subject. Maybe a student wrote about it on their personal statement, and once they've arrived at Univ, they've written a book review about it. So they're starting points for you, for students to go away and start exploring them subjects themselves, and hopefully find the resources useful ways of doing that.
So the next question I have here is, I have never studied dash before, can I apply for it?
Yeah, there are actually loads of subjects that you can study at Oxford that aren't actually offered by many schools at A-level, and that is reflected in the requirements, the subject requirements that you have. So some subjects will have specific subject requirements that show that you have important skills and knowledge to progress onto that subject at university. Like I said earlier, for medicine, you have to have taken chemistry and another science or maths. Those requirements will only ever be subjects that are commonly offered at schools. So if you study at a school that doesn't offer law at A-level, for example, or economics at A-level, or politics at A-level, but you want to study one of those subjects at Oxford University, they're not one of the required subjects for you to study. It wouldn't be fair for us to expect you to have studied a subject that wasn't offered at your school. And in many ways there are other subjects, say for law, studying an essay-based subject like history could be an equally valuable way of preparing than studying law at A-level. The best thing to do is check the requirements in the prospectus or on the university website about what courses are required for your course, rather than let the fact that you haven't studied it before put you off applying for a course. Really want to encourage students that there are so many courses out there, and just because you've enjoyed a subject at school doesn't mean that is the subject you have to study at university. It's worth looking around a bit.
So for example, in my degree I do computer science and philosophy, and the majority of people doing computer science haven't formally ever done computer science before. They've done a form of maths and maybe done some sort of programming in their free time. And even with philosophy, the number of people that have never even read anything philosophically related. And I think the interviews were sort of testing my logic skills rather than testing any body of philosophical knowledge. So it would have been the way that you think. The next question that we have is, I have a below standard offer set of predicted grades, should I no longer apply?
So the predicted grades are one aspect of the application that the university look at to assess whether to give you an offer or not at university, and they are an important bit of information. They are looked at alongside the GCSE grades and the score in the aptitude test, the performance in the interview. And they are particularly important because you need to have gained the requirements for entry. So you need to have got 3 A's if you're applying for like a humanities subject like history, or you need to have got 2 A stars and an A, or an A star and 2 A's if you're applying for many of our science subjects. And you need to have achieved those grades in order to be accepted or get your place on the course. And so the university does need to be sure that you are able to make those grades eventually. And we don't know that you as a student, but your teachers do know you. So we do take the kind of the predicted grades from the teachers fairly seriously when we look at them. But as I said, they're still only one part of the information that we look at about you. And it may be, I don't know, if your school never predicts an A star because they're too nervous to predict an A star. If that's the case, it should be explained in the teacher's reference, and then that can help us understand why your predicted grades don't match up with the required grades for the course.
That makes sense. Yeah, definitely. And the last question for the admission section is, my school doesn't offer further maths, will I be rejected?
Applying for a subject that has a requirement for maths and not having further maths at A-level, there are some schools that don't offer further maths, and so in those cases, as long as it's explained in the teacher's reference that the school isn't able to offer further maths, we can take that into consideration when looking at a student. There is actually a charity, so the Further Mathematics Support Programme, check out their website. They have resources for students and support for students that can't take further maths at their school. So it's worth checking that out if you're looking to apply for a subject that where there's going to be quite a lot of maths content when you arrive. but if your school doesn't offer it, then you can't take it. But many schools do, and if your school does offer further maths and you're looking to apply for quite a maths-based subject like maths or physics or engineering, then actually taking it can be a really useful way that you prepare yourself to take that course at university. There'll be a lot of maths content on the course, so if you're taking it, you're just going to find that transition up to university a little bit easier.
I think Univ facilitate that quite well because we have the maths week.
So we offer an extra week of maths teaching before the science students start their course. All science students except psychology are offered a week-long kind of maths teaching, so that any students, for example, who didn't take further maths, they'll be able to kind of get a little bit of a head start with the maths content that might start quite quickly when they arrive. And for any students that have taken maths and further maths, they have spent, 2 or 3 months in the summer without doing any studying, so it's a way of refreshing your memory before you start.
Yeah, definitely.
That's why we offer that at this particular college.
So the next section that we have is interview related questions.
Great.
The first one is, what's the best way to prepare?
So interviews happening in about 2 weeks, they'll kick off. It's really exciting actually to have lots of students coming into college and having their interviews and getting excited about the kind of new set of students that are going to arrive in a year's time. But I know it's a really nerve-wracking time for many students that are really wanting to get a place and thinking that maybe the interview is the final hurdle. I want to try and get away from that idea of it being the be-all and end-all, like the interview is that final part of the process. It's actually looked at, even once you've had your interviews, it's looked at alongside all the other aspects of the application. And the preparation that you've done to prepare for writing the personal statement, to doing the admissions tests, the supercurricular activities that we talked about earlier, that is another way that kind of the main way that you can prepare for your interview as well. So not dropping off from any of those independent learning and exploring your subject beyond your school curriculum, but keeping going with those things, thinking critically about maybe some radio programmes that you're listening to or some books that you've read, and thinking critically about it can be another. Keep going with that can help you I guess remain active in thinking about your subject and questioning it and criticising it. I'd also say that trying to find someone to talk to about your subject would be really useful as well. Sure. So the interview is going to be between 20 minutes and 40 minutes, and it's going to be an academic conversation, and we know you're going to be quite nervous. The interviewers will try and put you at ease and make you feel relaxed. But it is going to be an academic conversation that you're expected to engage with in a discussion 2 ways. And so the more you've had practice talking about your subject, the better. That's not that we think you should be preparing answers at all. Definitely don't rehearse answers, because
they'll be able to tell.
Yeah, they absolutely. As soon as they know that you're kind of reciting something that you've memorised, the interviewers are quite likely to shut you down and move on to something else. They want to see you genuinely engaging with the questions or the stimulus or the object or whatever they've given you to look at.
Yeah, that definitely happened in one of my interviews.
Really?
They pulled out a maths question, and I had seen that maths question before, and I literally did it in maybe like a couple of minutes, and they're like, "Have you seen this one?" I was like, "Yeah." And they were like, "Okay, we'll move on to another one." So the next question that we have is, I've had loads of interviews, does that mean I'm going to get rejected?
Okay, so this is in terms of someone who's
had
here and they've had lots of interviews, probably at lots of different colleges. And that's part of the process by which the Oxford colleges will kind of share students around when they come, when they've applied. So we don't want to make it unfair or make it harder to get into Oxford if you happen to have applied for a subject that's really oversubscribed at the college that you applied for in that particular year. And so there's various points in the application process where candidates are kind of shared around a little bit. They might be redistributed before you're invited to interview across the different colleges, and during interview you may well get interviews at multiple colleges. It is actually recommended that most subjects will interview people at more than one college. It's actually a kind of official part of the application process. You shouldn't be surprised if you were invited to interview at multiple colleges. Some subjects like medicine or engineering you're invited automatically to one interview at one college and one interview at another college, and that's set in the application process. Others, that decision to whether to invite you to interview at another college is made while you're here, and so you may get like a last minute request to come to another college. And some students may get a lot of interviews. This happens for a number of reasons, and so it's definitely not helpful for you to get caught up on and question why you might have been invited to interview at multiple colleges. It's usually because a college may have a really large number of students that are kind of worthy of a place at Oxford. They've kind of filled up the number of students on their own course, because they sometimes maybe only have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 spaces. And so at that point, there may be some candidates that they still think are competitive. They can still get a place somewhere at one of the Oxford colleges if they don't have room in their own college, and so that may be one of the reasons that you get invited to interview at another college.
That's exactly what happened to me, because when we got, I'd applied to Hertford, and when we got to Hertford, before I'd even sat my first interview, I'd already known which college I was going to for a second interview, so I'd realised that it can't have been performance-based, because...
because they invited you even before.
Exactly, so that. But then after I'd already sat those interviews, I had got further interviews, and I did keep thinking, why have I got more interviews? What's the case? But then after coming here, what I've heard from tutors is that sometimes they also send up some interviewees over for standardisation. To show other people what the candidates like in other colleges. Yeah, absolutely. And so definitely don't overthink why you've been invited to interview at other colleges, and treat every single one as if it's your first, and be open. Not in terms of nerves.
Some people find that they do much better by the time they've got to their fourth or fifth interview, because you've like, I've done all of these before, like it doesn't really matter anymore.
That's true.
So try and treat every single one, like try and perform your best in each one, but also I guess relax in all of them, because you're going to perform your best if you're relaxing and not overthinking it.
I think the next question's on a similar note. Is getting an interview at another college instead of the one I applied to a bad sign?
So that's part of the process that I talked about earlier, where you're maybe redistributed or reallocated to different colleges before interviews even start. This is just so we can spread the workload, so we don't have lots and lots of students coming for interview at one college where there's only a certain number of tutors and not many coming at another college, just
and is that
because
done...
some colleges are more competitive than others, and it's done systematically.
Oh, okay.
So it's done by all of the colleges. Some because they've got a lot of applicants one year, might have to transfer a few people over to another college who didn't get as many applicants for that subject that year. So you shouldn't read into that. It's done for a variety of reasons.
So now moving on to our third section of questions, which is open days and other matters. So the first question is how much does it cost to live in Oxford? Isn't it really expensive?
So Oxford as a city is quite expensive to buy a house in. It's an expensive place to live, but actually for a student it doesn't work out as much more expensive than living in some other cities. And there are many ways in which the university can keep costs down for students. So for example, many students, if they're on a short contract with their college, they only stay in college accommodation for the 9 weeks of their course, 9 weeks of their course at a time. So you're actually only living in college or college-owned accommodation for about half of the year. And when you're not living in college, you get to go home and not pay for your room. So your rent can work out as cheaper. The things like the fantastic libraries that we have here mean that some students, I've even met students that study history that have never had to buy books for their course because they have them available in their college library or in one of the department libraries, the university library.
I still haven't bought a book yet.
Have you not?
No, the one book that I did buy in the summer between actually joining college was reimbursed on the book grant.
Yeah, because you get a book grant, don't you, in your first year? And many colleges can offer book grants in first year, maybe even second and third year, to help students buy resources. So in many ways, course costs and accommodation costs can be actually lower at Oxford. And the university actually has some really useful information about the expected living costs on the website. So it gives you a range, so you can expect to pay between this amount and this amount, depending on your lifestyle, because we know that some students will choose to do an extracurricular activity that might cost them quite a lot, or they choose to eat more expensive food. I don't know. Different lifestyle choices will depend, but it's definitely possible to budget and to be able to enjoy all parts of university life when you come to Oxford. To help that, there are some bursaries and grants, so that's free money you don't have to pay pay back to anyone. You're not loaning it, it's money you're given. For students where their household income, so that's their parents' or guardians' income, is lower than a certain amount. So currently students whose parents or guardians earn under around 42,000 are eligible for some form of grant, and it's kind of on a sliding scale. As your parents' guardians earn less, you get given more by the university, and a large number of students do receive that. So it's called the Oxford Opportunity Bursary, and it's automatically given to students who are assessed.
So you don't have to apply for it?
Well, as long as you've applied for student finance and tick to say that you're happy for the university to see your information, you are automatically given it, and so that comes into your bank account kind of each term, and it helps you pay for your rent and your accommodation, your food and all the other costs associated with going to university. And because Oxford has long holidays, so what you get 6 weeks at Christmas, 6 weeks at Easter, and then almost 3.5 months over the summer, quite a lot of students will work, do part-time jobs or whatever in the holidays, so they can have a little bit of extra money when they come back to university.
So it doesn't actually work out that bad at all.
But there is useful information on the website about budgeting and about what you might be expected to spend when you come here.
I'll link the finance section of the university and the college on the website in the description box.
Colleges also sometimes have bursaries as well. So we talked about the book grants. There's also travel grants, so if you needed to travel for part of your course or maybe part of your research, when you're doing a research project or dissertation later on in your course, they may be able to give some money towards your flights or your accommodation, that kind of thing. And depending on your college, there'll also be some other bursaries, like means tested bursaries, for example. At this college, we tend to give some means tested bursaries to students kind of who are on the middle income, so they actually miss out on the support from the wider university because they're just over the £42,000 pounds kind of a drop-off point, but that still doesn't mean that their parents have a lot of disposable income to be able to support them, and so we give a bit of money to the people in that category that have just missed out on the university support at this college. Other colleges will choose to do it in different ways. But the fact that the university is split up into colleges means that there is extra money around that the colleges want to use to support their students that are here, to let them make the most of their course and all the other aspects of being here at university.
The next question is, do you have any advice for tackling open days?
So we offer 3 big open days every year. So we've got 2 that happen usually at the end of June or the beginning of July, and then 1 that happens in the middle of September. And open days can be an amazing way that you get an experience of being at the university, maybe get a taste for some of the colleges that are here. But there is a lot of information when you come, and it can often be a bit daunting about how much information there is. Did you come on one?
I came for 2 years because I knew that I couldn't actually do everything in one go, so I came in the summer between year 11 and 12 and then 12 and 13.
Well, I didn't go to any open day at all, because I'd actually got quite a lot of my information from being coming on one of the Oxford summer schools, the Oxford Unique Summer School. I got a lot of information coming to that, and so I didn't feel I needed to travel to Oxford again for the open days. But they can be a really valuable way that you gain information, but definitely turn up to an open day having done your research beforehand. So you might have looked through the kind of programme of talks and decided, well, I want this information in my department, and I want this talk here, and I maybe want to go on to something on student finance because I don't know about that yet, and you kind of put that into your schedule, and then
definitely come with a plan.
Definitely come with a plan, and then the open day can be a really good way that you narrow down your college choice. So it's worth, if you're applying for a subject where it's offered at lots and lots of different colleges, so English is offered at like all of them, you narrow down your college choice by thinking, do I want a college that's near to my department? Do I want a college that looks old or looks new? Is it a big college? Is it a small college? Thinking about the different the criteria you want in a college where you'd want to live for and be treat as your home for 3 or 4 years. And once you've narrowed that down to say 5 or 6, you can then visit those 5 or 6 on the day and get a bit more of a nuanced view on each of those, meet some of the students, meet some of the tutors to narrow down your college choice. It probably was easier for you because you didn't have as many colleges that you actually could apply to, because
there were like
5 or
8,
6 offer,
exactly.
offer computer science.
And I still didn't even get a chance to go to all 8 of them.
Really?
I got to, I think about 5 of them, because it was also the struggle of splitting your time between department and colleges. I wanted to go to talks in the department because they were subject-specific admissions talks, but I also wanted to have a look at the colleges. And also there are quite a few tutor drop-in sessions at other colleges, so I wanted to try and go to some of those. So that's why I thought it was best coming for both the days, but definitely plan your day beforehand.
Yes, definitely.
I live very far away and can't come to an open day. What's the next best way to find out about the university, colleges or department?
There's so much information, and in many ways it would depend on whether you know people that have been to the university before, whether you can ask them, but actually probably the best bet is looking on the websites. So the university will have lots of information about the course. It may have a bit of information about the colleges, but the individual college websites will have information about what facilities we have, who our tutors are, that kind of thing, to look through. And kind of looking through that kind of information can give you a bit of a feel for what a college is like. There may also be other resources that you can find, like Manny's video blog, to find out about individual colleges and things like that. So definitely use the internet and see what you can find. I'd say though, don't stress too much about your college choice, because in the end you may not actually get an offer from the college that you apply for. And you're going to end up loving wherever you end up.
For sure.
So don't stress too much about making a decision or going into loads and loads of details.
And you can do an open application if you can't decide.
And a lot of people do open applications. So more people tend to apply for an open application than apply to any one college. So it makes up a large proportion fairly large proportion of people that apply to university.
If you do an open application, it's almost as though the computer will pick a random college for you, and at the time of admissions, that college won't actually know that you did an open application. Right.
Yeah, so you're actually assigned to a college before the colleges receive the applications, and so they won't know whether you applied to them or not applied to them.
That's
so
good.
You're just treated as if you had applied to them.
And the last question that we have is, who can I email if I have any admissions questions?
So your school might have a link with a certain college, and there is actually an official link for certain regions of the country in across the UK. There's a specific link that they can go to at the university. So Univ looks after certain regions, so we look after West Berkshire, Reading and Wokingham, Staffordshire, Stoke-on-Trent, Shropshire and Telford area, and so I'd encourage any students from those areas to email me, and kind of you can find the contact details for the access officer or the outreach officer on the college websites,
which I'll link down below.
So it's worth finding out who your link college is. If you've decided on a college that you want to apply for, say you're in year 12 or year 13, emailing the college directly might be the best bet for specific information about your application, and so the admissions manager or the admissions officer at a college would be the best person to email about that. And then there is a lot of information already online. So there's a frequently asked questions page which you can find through the Oxford admissions part of the main website, where quite a lot of the questions that you might have are already there with a short answer, and so maybe your first stop. But any other questions you can actually submit through a question function there. There's a page that you can submit questions, but also contacting a college or the department as well. So contacting your subject department might be a good start as well.
Okay, perfect. Do you have any last minute things to say to everybody?
Please say that anybody that's not in year 12 yet, so in year 11, and you're not yet haven't yet chosen what qualifications you're going to take for A-level, it's definitely worth starting doing your research now. So you may have no idea what you want to study at university, but doing a bit of research now can put you in a better position to choose subjects that are going to kind of broaden your options for when you do apply to university. So looking to see if, I don't know, you're vaguely interested in history or vaguely interested in, I don't know, ancient history or Egyptology. There's a lot of subjects around that. You don't know which subject you want to apply for, but looking at the requirements for each of those subjects, if there are any, might help you make decisions for your A-level subjects that then enable you to apply to those subjects later on. So doing research now, when you're slightly younger, can't be a bad thing.
Thank you so much.
That's all right.
And thank you guys for watching. If you have any other questions, do leave them in the comment section below and we'll try and get as many of them as we can answered.
Great.
But thank you. Bye guys.
Bye.